they're still, with the rainy and cold weather we've had in early March, these birds are still probably grouped up together a lot, and heck, they don't even have to gobble right now half the time because they're in big groups with the hens and other gobblers right now. But they have started gobbling, so you need to come out here and start scouting and start listening, seeing where they're roosting and what they're doing after the roost. The birds I've heard have gobbled on the roost, but once they hit the ground, they haven't gobbled at all, which to me tells me they're still grouped up and got a bunch of hens with them.
Eventually, they're gonna come to the field. Turkey likes to strut, So if you have a field, that's an excellent place to set up a blind or something like that. Just sit. The biggest thing that'll, like I said earlier, will kill a turkey is patience. He may not be hot one day and he might be on fire the next. But in order to call one in, he's got to be in the mood. He's got to be
ready. There's multiple methods you can use, and it depends on going back to your scouting. If you are familiar with the piece of property that you're hunting and you know the turkeys are there, you can sit and wait on them, right? Even if the turkeys gobble and they don't come in first thing, but you have scouted, you know the hens are coming to this field, you have a blind up there, you can sit and wait all day. At some point, if you've done your scouting and you know the turkeys are coming, they're going to come. The hens are going to drag the gobbler with him. Again, going back to me, the run and gun, it would be what we would have done this morning. If we go and we didn't hear a turkey on our first stop, then we would have put some miles on the boots, right? We would have made some tracks. We would have covered a bunch of ground and started calling, every 100 yards or so until we strike one. And maybe we make multiple rounds, because Martin had mentioned it earlier in the segment that, he may not gobble first thing in the morning. We may circle back and we may try the area again, going back to the scouting. If he's there, then unless something crazy has happened, he's going to be in that area. And that's my thought. I think for a lot of us, how we grew up was the running and gunning type style, right? If you didn't get a turkey to fire, you're off running 100 miles an hour to the next piece or next whatever. But both of them can be very, very successful as methods.
All this is my opinion, but for bow hunters and first timers and stuff like that, I think the blind is an excellent idea, especially if you know where the turkeys are. Once again, you got to know where they are if they're coming to the fields, and you set your blind up, and you don't want to set it out just in the middle of the field. You want to kind of set it inside the edge right there and kind of maybe brush it in. You want it to look as natural as you can, like a big bush. As far as running and gunning, I love it. Going to a new place, hearing a bird, you don't really know the terrain features and everything, and you kind of learn as you go, but you get in there, you get set up on him and make some calls to him, and hopefully things will work out and he comes on in. If not, if he goes another direction, we may pick up and make a big loop on him and try and get in front of him. It's just, turkey hunting has got so many variables in it, but ultimately for a beginner, I don't think you can go wrong by putting the blind up and setting a couple decoys out, and just watch and see what happens. Now, if a turkey's coming in and he's coming to you, you don't have to call to him. You don't necessarily have to make a call at all. Just be ready.
And a lot depends on the time of year. Again, right now, early in the year, there's not much foliage on the trees. Use what you can as barriers. If you strike a turkey while you're running and gunning, whether you're walking the fields right here at the edge of the fields, don't try to stick out like a sore thumb. Don't walk down the middle of the field when you're running and gunning. walk the edges. Use what natural barriers you can to try to conceal yourself, because when you're running and gunning at any point, one could gobble and you need to prepare yourself, right? So even before, while you're walking down the old wood road, you know, in the middle of hardwoods, or you're walking the edge of the fields, before you make a call to try to strike the turkey, kind of look around. What do you have for options to you know, get some cover if you strike it and he's right around that corner right there, right? So use what natural barriers you can to try to conceal yourself. Make a few calls every 100 yards or so. Mix the calling up. I'm trying to think.
We've been in situations before where we've just been walking down the road and making a few calls, and all of a sudden the turkey gobble, he's right on top of you. Well, you know, do you take a chance on spooking him if he's coming to you? I've actually turned around and run the other way to put some more distance in between us, just so I can have more time to set up. If you set up in an awkward position, you pick a tree to sit down real quick because you know you got to sit down, he's right on top of you. If you pick the wrong tree and you stand out like a sore thumb, you pick a tree that big and you're that big, you know, he may pick up on you like that. You know, if you take the chance and turn around and take off running the other way, you know, and he doesn't see you, that gives you more of an opportunity to pick a better tree to sit by and everything. So, and like I said, patience. Patience is the biggest thing. It's not something, we got to hurry up and get him. No, sometimes you just want to take your time and have a good setup. When they really get turned on and they're in the peak of gobbling and everything, you go the evening before to a place where you're getting ready to hunt the next day, hopefully, and you know, like over here, this farm right here, you can get out at the cable up there and walk maybe 100 yards, and 9 times out of 10, right before dark, they'll be gobbling on their own. What they're trying to do is locate where the hens are, you know, for the next morning, so to speak.
When you go to roost them, I wouldn't do. I've used owl calls to roost them. I wouldn't do a whole lot of hen calling to them at that point in time, because that's a little against what nature's doing.
Owl calls probably the best call in the evening.
But I would go get out about an hour before dark and just kind of settle in a place where you can hear a long ways in each distance, and that would really give you an advantage for the next morning. Obviously, if you know he's roosted in, you know, 40 yards, 50 yards off a field, or he's next to the pond, that's where you start putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, right? You find out where they're roosting. You find out where they're going, where the field that they're going to the field, or where the hens are going or nesting. I mean, that's the whole puzzle to put together. But I think roosting a bird and finding out where he's at is obviously the first piece of that puzzle, because that's, if you find out where he's at the night before, then you know where your starting point is the next morning. So
yeah, you got one up on
yeah,
it, and you're gonna need it.
Where do you even, where would a turkey roost, right? Or where would a gobbler roost? Very similar to deer hunting or fishing. Everything likes edges, right? You see we're here at an edge of a power line. If it's a cutover, if it's a field, they like edges. They also like to roost around water. If you've got an old beaver pond, or a pond in general, or a big creek bottom, they like to roost around water. So those would be the places, if you're aware of any good edges, like we're here right now, or a pond, beaver swamp, those where I would start to kind of go and listen, you know, to see if where they're at. And then figure out a setup afterwards.
I was telling Eddie yesterday, you know, there's 4 or 5 things that if you put them all together when you go turkey hunting, most of the time you'll be successful. But if you leave one of those elements out, you know, then you're going to learn a lesson.
Yeah.